Man, that cow is so fucking hot. Hey nerd! Today's episode is brought to you in honor of septum ring theory. Since every time I say anything people don't like on the internet, I get comments that say, septum ring theory, and I get images of seriously badass looking hogs and bulls in my comments. I've decided to do a fun one today and talk about one of my greatest inspirations in this life. I got my ring because I want to look like this guy, the Minotaur. Like, seriously, you want me to be offended by the insinuation that I look like this beefcake? Get it together. You don't know what cool is. I think it's weird you don't want to look like this pinnacle of primitive power. Who else here loves labyrinths and sacrifices and having spikes on your head? Well, you've come to the right place. I feel like a lot of people know about the Minotaur, but I don't feel like he gets enough love at all. Before I get into it and tell you about this poor majestic bastard, I must welcome you to another episode of Little Lore from Where the Streetlights End, a show where I use my master's degree in history and lifetime of experience being a goth nerd to tell you a little bit about whatever spooky, monstrous, or weird thing that I think is cool this week. Subscribe if you're into that sort of thing, and if you like the cut of my jib, I've got a Patreon that I'll link below for you to join in the nerding I have sown. So those of us who aren't super into Greek mythology might imagine the Minotaur as a type of monster that exists within the stories. But the Minotaur is actually just one person. Person is my word of choice. Even regular cows are people, if you ask me. And his name is Asterion. And he has been done so dirty. According to his lore, which I will get to, he is the offspring of a woman who happened to be the daughter of Helios, the Greek god of the sun, and his father was an extremely pretty bull. So as you can imagine, he is extremely gnarly. He's got some of that god juice from his mama and the genetics of a bull that was so majestic, a king willingly incurred the ire of another god to keep it around. Asterion was born with the head and tail of a bull, and the body of a man. As he grew, he became extremely large and powerful, the horns on his head sharp and long, his hooves like steel. This is, of course, the most common depiction that we find in Greek artwork. He has other times been described as having a man's head and torso on the body of a bull, kind of like a centaur, but a bull instead of a horse. And this version arose a bit later. The centaur-style version of him became more popular for a while and was used in the Aeneid. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. When Virgil described him as the lower part a beast, a man above, the monument of their polluted love. As far as polluted love, you'll see what he meant by that in a little bit. If you're unfamiliar, a labyrinth is pretty much a massive, terrible maze. The Minotaur Asterion spent most of his life living inside of one. He was basically trapped alone, wandering the endless corridors until the time came once every 9 years, according to most versions of the tale, when a group of 14 people were sacrificed to him, and they entered his prison. And then he would get to go hunt everyone down and devour their flesh. So, King Minos. I'm gonna tell you the story. And it starts with King Minos, who won his place on the throne of Crete, and when he did so, he sought evidence that he would be favored as king by the gods. So to get this reassurance, he prayed to Poseidon and asked that he receive a snow-white bull as his blessing. The idea was that if Minos found or was given a white bull like this, it would mean that Poseidon had heard his prayers and would support him in his rule. Minos got his bull. Now he was supposed to sacrifice it to Poseidon in return. This would serve as a sort of pact or agreement between the king and the god. However, Minos thought that the bull was far too beautiful to be slaughtered, and he instead decided to keep it. He then sacrificed a different animal, probably a different bull, thinking that Poseidon would be okay with a substitute. Poseidon was not okay with a substitute. If you've consumed much Greek mythology, you may be familiar with the fact that Greek gods are all assholes, and they take themselves very seriously. So, in response to this disrespect by Minos, Poseidon conspired with Aphrodite, the goddess of love, essentially, to make Minos' wife fall in love with the white bull, which she did. The wife's name was Pasiphae, or Pacify, and she wanted that bull. She wanted that bull so bad that she actually went out and she found a craftsman and had him build a big hollow wooden cow. That lusty bitch climbed into the hollow cow and, well, she seduced the white bull. This is nonsense. Greek mythology is full of nonsense. The bull mated with her through the wooden cow, like a glory hole style, I suppose. Anyway, this weird bitch was impregnated as a result of this encounter. See what I did? And she gave birth to Asterion, the Minotaur. She cared for and loved the little bastard, but he grew quite rapidly. And he grew quite a lot. And he started acting like an asshole. He had become violent and aggressive, and honestly, Pasiphae didn't know what to do with him or even really what to feed him. Because after he was done nursing, like, he wasn't a human and he wasn't a bull. And humans and bulls eat very different things. As he grew, he began to seek out his own food. He was eating people. It was becoming a serious problem. So, Minos went and asked for guidance from people smarter than himself, and he had Daedalus, the same guy who made the wooden fuck cow, construct a massive labyrinth. The hybrid child was tossed into the labyrinth where it would be safe, and the world would be safe from it. I imagine Minos wasn't very happy looking at the offspring that came from his wife's weird love affair with the bull he got from Poseidon. That would be a weird life, right? So I figure he probably wasn't too bothered by tossing the kid in there. Anyway, so King Minos had a son that wasn't half bull and whom he actually loved. And his name was Androgeus. Androgeus died. Different stories say that he died different ways, but ultimately they all end up emphasizing that his death was the fault of the people of Athens. So, Minos blames every single person in the city of Athens for the loss of his son. Because of this, he demanded that every 9 years they sacrifice 14 noble citizens of Athens to the labyrinth, so that the Minotaur could rip them to shreds and eat them. When it came time for the third group of sacrifices to be sent into the labyrinth, Theseus, the prince of Athens, offered to join the others inside so that he could slay the Minotaur. He believed that he could navigate the labyrinth, best the beast in battle, and free his people from the curse laid upon them by the vengeful King Minos. Theseus said that he would have preferred to die rather than rule a city that paid a tribute of children's lives to their enemy. Noble enough. While he was in Crete, Minos' daughter Ariadne fell in love with Theseus. She gave him a ball of thread so that he could retrace his path when needed and ultimately find his way safely through the labyrinth. The thread worked perfectly, and when Theseus came upon the Minotaur, he defeated him and was able to find his way out. Some versions of the story say that he defeated the Minotaur with his bare hands, and other versions say that he used a club or something like that. But either way, Theseus killed Asterion the Minotaur. Sad day. What makes Asterion the Minotaur such a powerful entity to discuss, in my opinion, is the way that he himself was little more than a victim, really. Cursed by the circumstances of his birth, feared and despised by those around him, locked away and demonized for his entire life, and then ultimately killed, not for who he was or what he had done, but because of the cruelty of his mother's husband, I guess his stepfather. Technically. Anyway, the person doing the evil was King Minos, and Asterion had no choice in what kind of food his body needed to eat, and he didn't know nothing. He was the first guy that was half bull, half human. Who? How was he supposed to know how to go about being that, right? And then I'm sure King Minos was a friggin' jerk to him because he was the symbol of his wife's bestial cheating. Anyway, it wasn't his fault. The story of the Minotaur is a lot like the story of Fenrir. And I tell that story in one of my super old episodes, the one about the use of prophecy in storytelling. And if you know me at all, you know I love monsters who are really only monsters because they're treated as such. And that's why I've always loved the Minotaur. He was one of the scariest, most formidable creatures in the Greek myths, but as the stories have been told, his humanity, or personhood, his character, has been largely overlooked in favor of the hero story of Theseus. And you know what? That's some bullshit. See what I did there? Justice for Asterion. So if you're like me and you get called a bull all of the time on the internet because of it, because of your septum ring, or if you are someone who calls people livestock because of septum rings, I remind you that bulls are fucking badass. And unless you're Theseus, you cannot defeat one in hand-to-hand combat. I hope you enjoyed this little lore episode about one of my favorite mythological dudes. If you did enjoy this, hit the like button because it makes me feel alive. And subscribe to the channel for more of this and some of that. My upload schedule is changing up a bit lately, but I come here regularly to talk about all things dark, spooky, and weird. I've got some big, in-depth videos coming up that I'm pretty excited about. And I've got a Patreon linked below that I'd love for you to join. You can join for free and get access to things like personal updates from me and polls and what have you. But if you choose to subscribe with dollars, you get special bonus videos from me just about every week and some other perks, like shoutouts. Speaking of whom, I would like to publicly thank all of the people who support me over there. It means the world to me that some people like my nonsense. It wouldn't be worth doing it without y'all. So special thanks to the newest of the nerds, Ryan Pender, Gregory Dent, and Partial. And of course, as always, thank you to my boy Michael Matei, Patrick Finnegan, Christopher Coulson, Smoothie, Andre Davos, Walter Fate, Dale, and Mick Babylegs. I'm gonna go be weird in the forest now. Later, nerd.